The army in Northern Ireland has done their best to bring a touch of Christmas into their makeshift barracks. The parachute regiment, looking after this end of the barrier, have brightened things up with a Christmas tree.
The fathers of some of these children are either interned in prison or out of a job because bombs destroyed the places where they worked. Doctors claim that exposure to sectarian hatred and violence has produced severe emotional instability in thousands of Ulster's children.
Christmas shopping in any big city centre can be a nightmare. But if you think you deserve a medal for contending with high street crowds, spare a thought for the Belfast shopper. For where else does one have to queue at army-controlled barricades to gain access into all the most interesting shopping streets?
And now another IRA tactic. Their latest firebomb was hidden in a box which should have contained a toy bought as a present for this child.
The Secretary of State is satisfied that you have been concerned in acts of terrorism. Is that true or not true?
Of course it's not true, but leave all that aside for 1 second.
No, I'd like to probe your attitude to violence.
The throng of Christmas shoppers gave her a warm welcome.
Happy Christmas, Terry.
Have you enjoyed Newton Ards, Mrs.
Absolutely wonderful, I've loved it.
The security forces are cynical about the chances of political dialogue making progress. Mr. Brooks' upbeat assessment in the run-up to Christmas isn't widely shared here tonight. One of the latest IRA bombing attempts here came at a checkpoint outside Cookstown, when a young woman handed over a tin of chocolates to a soldier.
Protestant and Catholic children from some of the most hardline areas of this divided city, not only together, but together inside a British Army base.
And we're very optimistic that the children are going to have their first peaceful Christmas since they were born.
Catholic children on one side of the wall, Protestants on the other.
That peace line went up 25 years ago and the two communities have been totally excluded from each other, and we just felt it would be nice to bring the two communities together.
My first daddy died in the Troubles. It was the saddest day of my life. My Christmas wish is that peace and love will last in Ireland forever.
I believe we live in a time of hope and history rhyming. Standing here in front of the Guildhall, looking out over these historic walls, I see a peaceful city, a safe city, a hopeful city, full of young people that should have a peaceful and prosperous future. That is what I see today with you.
The permanent solution to Ulster's troubles may be just, but only just, within reach.
"1,800 families were made homeless by the Troubles, and the rehousing operation since then has been a nightmare for the authorities here. At first they used caravans, useless in winter because condensation makes everything damp. Fortunately, all the caravans should be empty in a very few days. Some people are moving to council houses for Christmas. For 200 or so less lucky people, there are wooden chalets, far from ideal, but much better than the vans. And gradually, more and more of the shelter homes from London are coming in. Much better than the chalets, because they have all services built in and central heating too. But little can alter the squalid surroundings of Beechmount. It's not the nicest place to spend Christmas, and the council knows it. But they say they've done everything they possibly can up to now. Not just here, but with all the homeless of Belfast. But some of the homeless couldn't agree less. These men are local people from around Bombay Street who've decided to go it alone and rebuild the houses here off their own bat. Bombay Street was the one all the official delegations visited. 50 homes were completely gutted. The council demolished the remains and have started detailed legal negotiations to get the houses rebuilt. That, the council points out, takes time, though they've cut every corner they can. Mr. Napier, the council say that it would take them quite a time to get all the documents and the legal procedures gone through, and that they're working flat out to do this, to rebuild Bombay Street. Now, isn't it a bit naughty of you to come along and take matters into your own hand and do it yourself?
Well, frankly, the association felt that from the very beginning, that when the promise to rebuild Bombay Street was made in September, that there was plenty of time for the ministry or for the council to come in and rebuild Bombay Street, or to have done more than they have done now. We felt that they were dragging their feet. They've done this in the past. We feel that they're doing it now. There's the other aspect of the thing, which is that they're going to produce a therapy for the people of the area. It shows the people of the area that someone cares about them. It gives them an opportunity to participate and it's an effective form of group therapy at the present time when things are spirits are fairly low, you know.
But you are, in fact, breaking every rule in the book, aren't you?
Well, we're not breaking every rule in the book. The corporation have given planning permission to go ahead with the scheme. The planning permission, of course, relates to the ground. We're working on plans as near as can be possible to the corporation's plans, and we're, if anything, improving on the corporation's plans.
Belfast Corporation has so far helped about 1,500 families to get new homes, but there are still 300 families that they just haven't got around to. It's quite clear that if the corporation is going to beat the rehousing problem in Belfast, then they've got to have help. But whether the sort of self-help that the people of Bombay Street have decided on is what the corporation had in mind is another matter.
The army in Northern Ireland has made very few concessions to Christmas. Their patrols are always at their most alert for trouble at weekends, and looked at one way, this is the beginning of a very long weekend. Individual soldiers have done their best to bring a touch of Christmas into their makeshift barracks, but the routine will be no different than any other day. Except tomorrow. Tomorrow, a third of the troops will be allowed time off to take advantage of invitations to eat, drink and be merry with families in Northern Ireland. But that still leaves more than 5,000 soldiers on duty, many of them working a constant 2 hours on and 4 hours off shift. On Christmas night, like any other night, the daytime loopholes in the peace barrier in Belfast will be blocked off. The parachute regiment looking after this end of the barrier have brightened things up with a Christmas tree. But cars still are diverted and occasionally searched, and pedestrians questioned. Behind one barricade this Christmas, the parachute regiment has opened a club. Before the troops arrived, it was a disused dance hall. Now it's back in business. It's not just a place for the soldiers to relax. It's a deliberate attempt to bring together the Catholics and Protestants of Belfast. It's only natural, being a dance hall, that most of the civilian visitors are girls. The Paradise Club is just 20 yards from the tactical headquarters, and the soldiers inside can be called back out on duty at a moment's notice. They're hoping that won't be necessary this Christmas. John Home, News at 10, Belfast.
Good morning. That is very, very kind. Thank you very much indeed. That is kind.
I hope.
Ja. Don't get none of that now.
Christmas in Belfast should be peaceful, but for the 28 families living here, it's going to be far from happy. 3 sites were set up nearly 18 months ago to provide very short-term housing after the serious rioting. This site is now the smallest and the grimmest. There are 2 sorts of homes. Some which were sent in by Shelter, the organisation for the homeless, last year, are these high-standard temporary units. But the others are huts, little better than large garages with partitions. Most of the original residents have been replaced by others, the victims of later troubles. But some, like 74-year-old Mr. Frank Sheehan, are spending their second Christmas at White Rock, despite direct appeals to the Minister of Development.
I asked Mr. Faulkner, I said, when... I welcomed it in Gaelic, as I said. And he answered me in Gaelic. I says, please, I said, could you tell us? I said, when we get out of this. I was down in the house shelter at the time. Yes. And he says, I'm sure, Mr. Sheehan, he says, you'll be out, he says, before the winter. I wrote to him, and he replied to me. But he says he could do nothing, that it's the people in Lennon Hall Street.
But he said you might be out before this winter started.
He told me that in March. I said, please, I said, when? I said, will we get out of here? He says, I'm sure. He says, Mr. Sheely says you'll be out before the winter.
But the housing authorities in Lillenhall Street say that all the people at White Rock have been offered permanent homes which they've turned down. The Catholic residents say those homes have often been in Protestant or near Protestant areas out of central Belfast where they're afraid to live. Their MP, Paddy Devlin, says angrily that there's no excuse for these conditions. A crash building programme, he says, could have prevented them by now. To which the housing people reply that they've rehoused nearly 2,000 riot victims in 2 years, and that this site is being run down. Happily, out of all this, some good has come. So bad were conditions for children here that the welfare department rushed in an experimental play school, in fact a £5,000 prefab. It's been such a fantastic success that 4 more are going to other difficult areas in Belfast. Because this, as you can hear, is where for a few hours at least the children can forget the conditions outside.
If you're happy and you know it, your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, shout it for me.
Michael Brunson, News at 10, Belfast.
The fathers of some of these children are either interned in prison or out of a job because bombs destroyed the places where they worked. Either way, it makes for a bleak Christmas. And a few won't have a Christmas at all because their parents say they can't bring themselves to celebrate a time of goodwill when so little of it is being shown in Ulster at present. So today, hours after leaving Belfast, turkey and mince pies were being dished up amidst the bangs of crackers and the shouts of delight. Many people have now expressed concern over the effects of violence on Ulster's children. Teachers are finding it increasingly difficult to control pupils weaned on a diet of street fights and sleepless nights. Doctors claim that exposure to sectarian hatred and violence has produced severe emotional instability in thousands of children. The army no longer find it unusual to arrest 16-year-olds. Part of the answer, say the experts, is to regularly remove them to a different environment.
Just get them out of Belfast, get them away from the tensions for a while.
What would you say are the dangers if we don't get them out of Belfast?
Well, I'm not an expert or a child psychologist, but I feel that the tension is doing a great amount of damage to these kids.
What sort of damage?
It makes them jumpy, nervous, and we're told by the experts that in 10 years' time we're going to reap the results of this in terms of increased nervousness, nervous disorders and things like that.
But for now, it was on to see Cinderella at the London Palladium, a pantomime that, unlike Belfast's, is not expected to play to half-empty houses. For some, there was time for a quick backstage chat with stars Clodagh Rogers and Ronnie Corbett before the return home. In all, a day that gave them something else to talk about with their friends back home, in a city where anyone carrying Christmas parcels is automatically suspect, no matter what their age.
Christmas shopping in any big city centre can be a nightmare. But if you think you deserve a medal for contending with high street crowds and the risk of more bombs like the one in Oxford Street last night, spare a thought for the Belfast shopper. For where else does one have to queue at army-controlled barricades to gain access into all the most interesting shopping streets? Of course, there are security checks in operation all year, but at Christmas, with so many more people coming to the town centre to shop, security gets tighter and the queues much longer. There are waits of up to an hour as each man, woman and child is thoroughly searched. But even this sort of thoroughness hasn't stopped 2 bombs exploding behind the barricades in the last 2 days. However, that's only the first hold-up. You don't then slip into 2 or 3 stores before hurrying home, because every big store has its own security check, and so the queuing and bag-searching procedure begins again. And the bigger the store, the bigger the bottleneck, as shoppers can enter and leave by only one door.
The situation is that for decades from the formation of this state and for centuries before that is that there has been a problem in Ireland. Republicans say that that problem is a British problem. It springs into British public attention when some violent incident pushes it that way. We wanted to explain how violence in Ireland could be stopped, and we wanted to broaden the understanding that some progressive elements have there of the whole nature of partition in Ireland and the British presence.
But you're not, in fact, opposed to violence in Ireland yourself, are you?
Of course we're opposed to violence in Ireland. I mean, it's British violence in Ireland.
But you're not opposed to Irish violence in Ireland?
We are opposed to all sorts of violence in Ireland, but we believe and politically defend the right of Irish people to defend themselves against British aggression.
When that bomb went off in Ballykelly, you issued a statement saying that the British government would use it as an excuse to prevent people seeing that there was an alternative to violence in Ireland. What did you mean by that?
Well, very, very basically, the British people are given snippets of Republican views and crammed into 2-minute interviews, edited at whoever controls the media, that we want to expand or wanted to expand at some length. What is the alternative to violence? The alternative to violence is peace. So how do you get peace?
But the Secretary of State says that he is satisfied that you have been concerned in acts of terrorism. Is that true or not true?
Of course it's not true, but leave all that aside for 1 second.
No, I'd like to probe your attitude to violence, because I think a great many people in Britain would like me to ask you that question.
But
on the one hand, you say you're in favour of armed struggle. On the other hand, when any particular incident says, you say you're against it and it wasn't that you had in mind. I mean, where do you stand?
No, I mean, first of all, I will state very, very clearly, you put me live on your television screen, right, and I will state very, very clearly where I stand, which is very, very simply that we politically defend the right of Irish men and Irish women to resist British aggression in this country. Now, what is Whitelaw's attitude to terrorism? Whitelaw flew me to London, right, in 1972 at your expense, right, to discuss things in London. The same Whitelaw now stops Ken Livingstone from doing the same thing at my expense. Now where is the sense in that? Whitelaw can do it in 72, Livingstone can't do it in 1982. Now, just let me make another point. He also says that he stopped us from going to London because he believes that we may be attempting to enter Great Britain with a view to being concerned in the commission, preparation or instigation of acts of terrorism.
True or not true?
Jesus Christ, God forgive me. Everybody knows why we were going to London. Now, do you not know why we were going to London? We were going to London to meet councillors from the GLC. Is that an act of terrorism?
Why do you suppose the Home Secretary thinks you had some other reason for going?
Because they are afraid. They are afraid in their boots of people standing up in England and being able to listen to what Irish people have to say on the issue. Now, secondly, this isn't just Gerry Adams they're balling, right? I was elected. Donny Morrison was elected. So you have the whole contradiction, right? And within the whole British system, it's contradictory that they ask people to use the ballot box, and then when they use the ballot box and the results don't suit the British government tries to change the rules.
The British government is responsive to a great wave of outrage.
Which has been contrived and which has been artificially built up by right-wing elements in the British Parliament, by like Concannon and idiots like that.
But that bomb went off, didn't it?
Of course it went off, and have no doubt, my friend, that other bombs will go off. And that's the fact of the situation, because no one is looking at the ways of bringing peace. And what we want to do is to bring peace to our country. We have a vested interest in peace. We live here. We want to bring peace to our country.
But ordinary working class people in England, they may be being deceived, they may be being manipulated, but at the moment they are very angry with you and your friends.
Well, we are very angry as well, and have no doubt about that. We are very angry at the fact that when British troops, a few free streets from here, shoot dead with a plastic bullet, we're very angry that Concannon stands up and condemns us and yet condones the slaughter of Irish children with plastic bullets. We're very, very angry that prior to Iraq's British troops, the kill that last week, or the week beforehand, 5 nationalists, 4 were killed, and 1 was seriously injured. Who by? By the RUC under the direct control of the British government.
Do you believe there is any chance of your persuading British opinion to change things in Northern Ireland so long as you are committed to armed struggle?
Do you think there's any chance of the British government persuading the vast majority of people in Ireland to accept the British presence in this country? Do you think there's any chance of that happening?
The majority of Catholics in Northern Ireland at the moment reject your course of action.
What course of action?
The course of action of being committed to armed struggle.
The majority, right?
Of Catholics in Northern Ireland reject.
The majority of people in Ireland, the vast majority of people in Ireland want...
I'm talking about Northern Ireland.
No, but I'm talking about Ireland. It's an island. You can't just carve up. The majority of people in Ireland want the British government out of our country. Now, secondly, right, we stood in an election very, very recently and we captured 35% of the anti-unionist vote. Now, those people knew...
That's 35%. So by the same token,
of course, and
twice as many people rejected what you had to say.
By the same token, we only stood in a limited number of seats. Our percentage would have increased. Now, I have no doubt about it that the vast majority of people on this island want your government out of our country, your troops out of our country. Right?
That may be so.
Of course,
but it's also so. But is it not also so that a large majority of Catholics reject your particular prescription for achieving that?
Well,
because
my
they
particular
believe
prescription
nothing.
for achieving that is very, very simply. I'll ask you now, right, or ask through the medium of your television, would your government please go home? Now, does that work? Will that work?
What do you mean? How could it possibly just go home like that?
How could it not go home? What's it doing here?
It's on its own sovereign territory.
It's on its own sovereign territory, and that is the crux of the whole problem, that the British government can, wherever it wishes, sometime in the past or sometime now, decide that a place, wherever it be in the world, is its own sovereign territory. At the beginning of the century, it was saying that India was its own sovereign territory, right? That parts of Africa were its own sovereign territory. That's not saying that now.
That's not true, isn't it?
Of course it's true.
They said they were colonies. They did not say they were.
They're saying that this is a colony, this is a province.
You're
right?
saying it's a colony.
No, of course it's a colony, and it's colonial rule which is in force here.
But the fact is that the majority of the people in this province do not want the British government.
Who are the majority of people in this province? What province? The British come in and carve up. Sure, I'll carve up a wee bit of Scotland.
That was quite a long time ago, wasn't it?
It wasn't quite a long time ago, because Irish history has stopped. And Irish history has stopped because the British Army, the British government have stopped Irish history. Our people can't go forward.
Mrs. Thatcher's first stop was at the town of Newtonards near Belfast. Somewhat to the consternation of the security forces, but to the delight of the crowds, the Prime Minister decided on a walkabout. The throng of Christmas shoppers gave her a warm welcome. In the crush that surrounded her progress down the high street, several people were swept off their feet, but Mrs. Thatcher stepped in to help.
There's a big puddle. She's just been trying to get out of it.
Come forward.
That's right.
That's the Thatcher there.
All right, my dear.
Mr. Thatcher was off on his own, spreading his unique brand of Christmas cheer. And the Northern Ireland Secretary seemed to have lost his sense of direction in the crush.
Which way are we going?
Yeah, thank you, dear.
Happy Christmas to you.
Have you enjoyed Newtonards, Mrs.
Absolutely wonderful. I've loved it. Lovely.
Come on, shake a hand here, one.
Very much indeed.
Her next stop was to the local police station, where she met the widows of RUC men killed in terrorist attacks. She had this warning for the IRA.
Democracy is the rejection of violence. And we're never, never going to be defeated by bombs and bullets. Not here or anywhere else in the world.
That was a message Mrs. Thatcher repeated when she finished her day with a visit to the troops manning a border checkpoint in Armagh.
May we wish you and your families a happy Christmas, a peaceful Christmas, and we all strive for a more peaceful new year, a year in which greater goodwill can defeat the problems which face us. Thank you.
Hold on.
Each time I return to the province, you always say, will you come back again? And we always do. Of course we do. It is part of the United Kingdom, and we always want to demonstrate our total support to you in the difficult and arduous work you are doing, and the bravery and courage with which you do it. We should not be able to keep our freedom and rule of law but for the work of the security forces, the Royal Ulster Constabulary, the Ulster Defence Regiment, and the great support of the people of the province. It needs us all to do it. Democracy is the rejection of violence, and we're never, never going to be defeated by bombs and bullets, not here or anywhere else in the world. We believe in certain things very strongly. We believe in our way of life. We're determined to keep it. May I say how impressed I have been by everyone in this police station. You have very great and very wide duties. If I may say so, you carry them out magnificently. May I offer a word of sympathy to those who were injured in the Polytechnic and in other terrible events which have happened within the province, and say how much we owe to the widows who are here, and how much we admire their strength and fortitude in the very difficult days through which they've had to pass. We come to demonstrate our affection and full support for the people of the province. As you know, we try to demonstrate that support in many, many practical ways. And if I might say so, I think we have a superb Secretary of State for Northern Ireland who is dedicated to the people of the province.
Belfast city centre, Saturday afternoon, and the Christmas shopping season is well underway. Political events have done nothing to dent outward normality here so far. Outside the City Hall, people queue for buses home, where a week on, Ulster Unionists plan to hold a massive rally of protest against the Anglo-Irish agreement. Another normal feature, people from the Irish Republic carry vast hauls of Christmas shopping onto their buses. Many make a 12-hour round trip to take advantage of the North's favourable prices. Loyalist extremists are reported to have said this weekend their campaign against the agreement may make these very people legitimate targets for terrorist attack, but for now it's party mood. Armagh Catholic Cathedral, sited at the birthplace of Irish Christianity and seat of Ireland's Cardinal Archbishop. As people flock into Mass, the future of Northern Ireland and the significance of the Anglo-Irish agreement is very much on their minds. Down in the town, the newsagents are having a field day.
It's been very good.
Sold out?
Yes, sold out yesterday, and we hope to today.
British and Irish papers and the local Sundays are selling well to Catholics anxious to read further analysis of the agreement, though the editorials all follow the clearly established viewpoints of each paper.
What do you think the summit agreement means here? Are people generally optimistic hereabouts?
I don't think so. I don't think it's really going to make an awful lot of difference.
I suppose it can only do good in the long run. It's a step in the right direction, I feel.
Are people generally optimistic hereabouts?
Well, from what I've read in the papers now, seemingly about half and half.
I haven't really read about it, to be honest. I need to read it, the full text, before we make any comment, to be honest.
Mrs. Thatcher and Dr. Fitzgerald said they hoped it would bring peace and stability. Do you think it will?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
On the Loyalist side, the Reverend Ian Paisley spent the weekend launching an appeal to Ulster Protestants to set next Sunday aside as a special day of prayer. As usual on a Sunday, Dr. Paisley himself spent most of yesterday here at the church of which he's minister, the Martyrs Memorial Free Presbyterian Church in this residential middle-class area of South Belfast. It wasn't possible to film inside or outside during the service, but we were invited to take away a sound recording of what he'd told his congregation. It's a powerful attack on the Anglo-Irish agreement, a call to arms for Ulster Protestants, and a withering denunciation of Mrs. Thatcher.
O God, defeat all our enemies. We call upon thee. We pray this night that thou wouldst deal with the Prime Minister of our country. In the name of thy blessed self, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, we hand this woman, Margaret Thatcher, over to the devil, that she might learn not to blaspheme. And O God, in wrath, take vengeance upon this wicked, treacherous, lying woman. Take vengeance upon her, O Lord.
By contrast, on the purely political front, the official unionists today made clear just how they would be opposing the Anglo-Irish agreement.
It is inconceivable to me that the government should seek to disregard the freely expressed wish of this community. If it does, then we have made it clear that we will set about the organised withdrawal of the consent of the unionist community to be governed.
What does that mean?
It means, in the first instance, a withdrawal, unequivocal withdrawal from the Parliament of the United Kingdom. It would mean withdrawal from every agency and structure of government in Northern Ireland. It would mean organised resistance to a form of government to which this community does not subscribe.
Organised resistance on the streets?
On constitutional and political terms.
And Sinn Féin held a press conference to protest at their exclusion from television coverage of the Anglo-Irish summit and to put their view.
What has happened to date has not been an advance. On the contrary, it has been the formal recognition for the first time by a Dublin government of the Northern Ireland state under partition.
On the question of unionist resignations at Westminster, Mr. Adams showed Sinn Féin to be ready to fight any by-election, even making an appeal, quickly rebuffed, to moderate SDLP candidates to stand down if that might help defeat a unionist candidate.
What we have said in an appeal to the SDLP and in a reiteration of our position at every election is that those elections should be fought in the interests of the nationalist community and not necessarily in the party political interests of the SDLP or Sinn Féin.
Meanwhile, in Bangor, County Down, they buried the latest victim of violence here. Constable David Hanson died as he patrolled a border area hours before the signing of an agreement that has divided the nationalist community but has united the Loyalists, many of whom see it as a treacherous concession to Constable Hanson's murderers. Charles Hodson, ITN, Northern Ireland.
It was just after midnight when a man suspected of being an opportunist car thief started the sequence of events which was to lead to the huge haul of arms and explosives here in South London. Police believe the man was trying to break into this car parked outside a block of flats when he disturbed a gunman sleeping inside. The gunman opened fire, wounding him in the stomach before running into the building where he alerted a colleague. They then disappeared. Residents called the police. Armed officers sealed off the block and eventually forced their way into the flat. Inside, they found around 150 pounds of Semtex explosives like this, the sort used by the IRA in much of their recent European bombing campaign, also rifles and machine guns.
The neighbour downstairs came home at 20 to 1, parked his car opposite the flats. And as he got out of the car, there was an argument between two geezers. And he went to lock his car, and as he looked up, he thought the geezer was actually breaking into the car, but he put his fist through the window. Having done that, the other guy stepped back, and the bloke inside the car turned around and shot him.
This woman lived above the bomb factory and saw one man using the flat recently.
Because I really thought the flat was empty. I didn't think there was anyone there. I had seen a light in it occasionally, but I thought it was someone viewing it or something, you know, until I saw him go in, and the only thing that came into my mind, oh, a new tenant.
Anti-terrorist squad officers and their forensic counterparts spent all night and much of the day at the flat. By now they had targeted 2 people. This is one man they want to trace, who uses 2 names, either Jim Errington or I.P. Flynn. Police warned the public not to approach these men.
The individuals concerned are very likely to be armed and certainly will be dangerous.
Police admit there was a significant amount of luck involved in today's find, but at the same time, officers are delighted that the material for what could very well have been a major bombing campaign here is now under lock and key. Robin White, ITN, South London.
This is the sort of IRA firebomb which has caused havoc in Ulster for years, and now the British mainland is suffering a similar fate. As a police demonstration shows, it's easily planted with minimal risk of detection, and the results are devastating. A timer detonates the device. 25 seconds later, a coat is ablaze. Less than a minute after that, the fire is taking hold. More than 200 firebombs were planted in Ulster over the past year, and now another IRA tactic. Their latest firebomb was hidden in a box which should have contained a toy bought as a present for this child. Police say if the box hadn't been inspected, there could have been a tragedy. Today, the Northern Ireland Secretary claimed IRA firebombings didn't constitute a new tactic, rather an old failed one, which wouldn't intimidate the British public.
The fact that they've gone back to tactics which they used in the 70s, I regard rather more as bankruptcy of new thinking than as being in any way otherwise significant. You do wonder whether those who are doing these things are actually living in the same world as the rest of us. Are those the actions of people who think that they are actually advancing, or are those the actions of people who are actually getting close to despair because they're not actually successful in hitting the security forces by the means they've historically been using?
But Republican sources say with IRA operations now called off in Europe, the plan is to mount a sustained campaign of violence and disruption on the British mainland to keep the Irish question on the political agenda. The 2 IRA members killed by their own bomb in St Albans last month were unknown to intelligence agencies, and they were amongst a new young breed of terrorists playing a lethal key role. But Mr. Brooke claims that's more down to a shortage of experienced terrorists and recruitment problems than a deliberate new IRA policy.
The IRA are finding it more difficult to recruit young people, who to be what I will call really high-grade terrorists in terms of attacks on the security forces, which in the end is what the IRA are about. And I agree. I agree that it is difficult to detect the firebomb, the small firebomb. That is actually that is a use for people who perhaps are showing interest in terrorism, but don't actually have the skills to be given the kind of tasks which in the past people have been trained to do.
Moving now to the political initiative, what hope is there on this front?
When we rose from the table in July, I was quite clear from the way people had behaved at the table and from the sense that they felt that they owned the talks, that those who'd taken part, that they would come back. I couldn't predict when, and I can't predict when in 1992 they will come back, but I'm absolutely certain they will come back. If you got a political deal which involved everybody else, that would unquestionably, without question, put pressure on the terrorists, because they would have a cause which nobody else acknowledged in any way, because everybody else had been able to reach agreement round a table.
However, most Ulster people, and in particular the security forces, are cynical about the chances of political dialogue making progress. And with any relaxation now of heavy security, meaning an escalation of Loyalist as well as IRA violence, Mr. Brooks' upbeat assessment in the run-up to Christmas isn't widely shared here tonight. Andrew Simmons, News at 10, Belfast. The IRA statement spoke of a 72-hour ceasefire starting at midnight tonight. It came as security forces on both sides of the Irish Sea were on one of their highest states of alert for years. The statement referred to Ulster but made no mention of the UK mainland. One of the latest IRA bombing attempts here came at a checkpoint outside Cookstown, when a young woman handed over a tin of chocolates to a soldier. Bomb experts were called into his barracks 2 days later, when the soldier removed the tin, like this one, out of his locker. Instead of chocolates, though, the tin contained a £2 Semtex bomb.
It's hard to believe that, a time of Christmas, of goodwill and the singing and proclaiming of peace on earth, that some person could hand over a weapon of death and destruction in such a very, very callous way.
There has been no ceasefire statement from Loyalist terrorists who on Sunday shot dead Martin Lavery, a Catholic, while his children were wrapping Christmas presents. He was buried today. Amongst the mourners, his 5-year-old daughter, who was sitting on his knee when he was shot. No one is pretending here tonight that there's any new prospect for peace, far from it. IRA Christmas ceasefires are nothing new. There had been hopes of a prolonged halt to the violence. In reality, though, this is nothing more than a short intermission in the long campaign of bombings and shootings. Andrew Simmons, ITN, Belfast.
A military helicopter, Father Christmas, and at an army barracks in Belfast, a kids' party that would have been unthinkable even a year ago. Protestant and Catholic children from some of the most hardline areas of this divided city, not only together, but together inside a British Army base.
Well, it's with a sense of great excitement that all the children have come to the Army Barracks today to meet with children from all the different schools in North Belfast. And we're very optimistic that the children are going to have their first peaceful Christmas since they were born.
18,000 troops are garrisoned here. No talk yet of a pullout, but with the ceasefire, less worry about bombs and bullets, more time for building bridges. In this barracks today at least, they're facing nothing more uncomfortable than a wet sponge. The economic benefits of peace are most obvious here on Ulster's high streets. Christmas takings up by 30%. Much of it from people who've been frightened to come here for the last quarter of a century, visitors from the Irish Republic.
We're from Dublin!
Coaches and special trains from the south are now bringing 10,000 shoppers a week to Belfast alone. This time last year, only 100 a week were confident enough to come. It was 1969 when Dubliners John and May Forsyth last were here.
Well, we always shopped in Belfast before the Troubles. And then when the Troubles started, and we just didn't come with the children anymore. So we're back again and we're happy now to be back. It's such a lovely city.
How much have things changed?
It has changed for the best. It's lovely.
And there are other changes on the high street. The RUC are patrolling without the benefit of body armour or rifles.
Merry Christmas to you. All the best.
For Sergeant John Palmer, 40 years on the beat, it's how he used to remember things.
Great. Next about 2 stone off you.
Vera Hazlitt's memories this Christmas are more than ever of her husband, Jim. He was shot dead outside their home 8 years ago, one of the 3,168 murdered in the Troubles. Vera was left with 4 children, but she believes now is a time for forgiveness. She's even prepared to consider an amnesty for terrorists.
If we want to think positively of the future, and I think for the children and the grandchildren, we must. And can you have peace without amnesty? On the other hand, I think, like a lot of other people, I'd like to know there were no guns left. I would like to know that weapons were going to be surrendered.
Not every family who suffered can forgive, and the surrender of weapons is one of many obstacles to a settlement. But the flame of peace burns brighter here this Christmas than it has for a quarter of a century. We found a genuine belief among many here that a permanent solution to Ulster's troubles may be just, but only just, within reach. Norman Rees, News at 10, Belfast.
Catholic children on one side of the wall, Protestants on the other. For 25 years, the fence has been a religious divide in North Belfast, the so-called peace line in a dilapidated area where nearly 1,000 people were killed during the Troubles. This Christmas, the terrorist threat is gone, and to celebrate peace, the children who live and are educated separately were brought together by two mothers, one Catholic, one Protestant.
That peace line went up 25 years ago, and the two communities have been totally excluded from each other. And we just felt it would be nice to bring the two communities together.
These two communities have actually been torn apart over the 25 years of Troubles and has suffered tremendously, and I think it's now time for people on these communities to look at the future of their children and how they want it. I don't think anybody from these communities want to go back now to the bombing of the bullet.
A year ago, this helicopter would have been involved in surveillance over this part of Belfast. This week, the army were airlifting Santa Claus. Such a public relations exercise would have been difficult before the ceasefires. It's another example of how peace has transformed Northern Ireland. John Irvine, ITN, Belfast.
Early morning at Belfast Airport, and the first visit of a sitting American president to Northern Ireland was underway. A day given over to carefully staged managed symbolism rather than substance. The president's time equally divided between Protestant and Catholic areas. But in both, he and his wife were eagerly awaited by people here. And by the press for a visit designed to set the seal on the twin-track peace process and to hammer home the message that peace here equals prosperity. So Mackey's engineering plant in West Belfast was the venue for the president's speech, where successful cross-community employment policies, expansion and jobs have gone hand in hand. Also hand in hand to introduce the president, a Protestant schoolboy and Catholic girl, Catherine Hamill.
My first daddy died in the Troubles. It was the saddest day of my life. My Christmas wish is that peace and love will last in Ireland forever. And now, ladies
A possibility given new momentum by the 11th hour talks between London and Dublin, establishing the twin-track peace initiative, buying time and buying hope.
This twin-track initiative gives the parties a chance to begin preliminary talks in ways in which all views will be represented and all voices will be heard. It also establishes an international body to address the issue of arms decommissioning. I hope the parties will seize this opportunity. Engaging in honest dialogue is not an act of surrender. It is an act of strength and common sense.
And yesterday's gunman, he said, can become tomorrow's statesman.
Violence has no place at the table of democracy and no role in the future of this land. By the same token, you must also be willing to say to those who renounce violence and who do take their own risks for peace, that they are entitled to be full participants in the democratic process.
Some loyalists said it was predictable stuff and didn't address what they see as the key problem.
It could have been maybe harder in Sinn Féin, because Sinn Féin are the ones that have impeded progress this last lot of months. He did mention punishment beatings, but I think it could have been harder on Sinn Féin.
Everybody knows rightly that the IRA is not going to give up their weapons no matter what they say or do, and we know there will be a climb down from the governments again.
But this wasn't really a day for politicking. The simple fact of the visit of the world's most powerful person was in itself a startling endorsement for peace, from the sharpshooters on the roofs to the 3,000 RUC officers deployed with regulation lunchboxes, and the US Secret Servicemen muttering into shirt-sleeve microphones, with their mobile units to relay messages concerning the president's security. On the Loyalist Shankill Road, Bill and Hillary bought flowers and apples. "I nearly fainted," said the fruit seller.
Very, very shocked. I'm very shocked, very nervous. It was a wonderful experience just to meet him.
Outside, opinions divided.
I don't think much. What good does he do us?
He should stay in his own country. There's enough to do over there without coming over here.
I thought it was great, so I did. I never thought he would come, so he never. And I didn't even know he was coming today. He's an awful nice man.
But a key moment was captured on amateur video in the Republican Falls Road. Gerry Adams was having a cup of tea. Bill Clinton dropped by and shook hands. Portrayed as a chance encounter, it had been pre-arranged. They'll meet again this evening, and Gerry Adams said every time the US president engages, the peace process gets a boost.
It has internationalised the issue in a way which was not, I suppose, possible. The British tried to internalise this all the time. But really, at the end of the day, and I think the President made this point yesterday, it's up to the two governments. And the British government is the one with jurisdiction in this part of the island, and it's up to John Major. And when the President goes back to the USA, John Major needs to emulate the example which he has been set.
Thence, by air this afternoon to Northern Ireland's second city, Londonderry, and a greeting from John Hume, who played a crucial role in brokering the IRA's ceasefire.
Let us show the world how this city welcomes its guests as we invite to the platform the President and the First Lady of the United States of America, Bill and Hillary Clinton.
And outside Derry's Guildhall, the most rapturous welcome of the day.
Sir Patrick Mayhew and Lady Mayhew, John Hume, MP, and his wife Pat, the Mayoress, Mrs. Carita Kerr, and our first citizen, the Mayor of Derry, Councillor John Kerr.
And for John Hume, who's seen Derry's agony from the civil rights marches through 25 years of violence, this was a historic moment.
Let it be our dream, and it's a dream that we will achieve with the powerful assistance of the President and his administration, and the senators and congressmen who are here today. That dream is that we will have a land in the next century where for the first time in our history there will be no killing in our streets and no emigration of our young people to other lands. Thank you, Mr. President.
And the Clintons already saw concrete signs of John Hume's dream becoming a reality in Derry.
Well, my friends, I believe we live in a time of hope and history rhyming. Standing here in front of the Guildhall, looking out over these historic walls, I see a peaceful city, a safe city, a hopeful city, full of young people that should have a peaceful and prosperous future here where their roots and families are. That is what I see today with you.
And tonight the crowds are pouring into Belfast city centre, where the President will shortly switch on the Christmas lights before moving south to reinforce the same message in Dublin. It has been a celebration, a day of peace designed to make the return of war seem not just impractical but unthinkable. But tomorrow the President will have gone and the hard talking must begin urgently. Alex Thompson, Channel 4 News, Belfast.